the goat that could fly. Once there was a marvelous creature. He was like many animals, and yet he was different from any also. He walked upon 4 graceful legs, had long hairy ears, a tooth-filled snout with a coal-black nose, a very furry body and a short bushy tail. And it really was marvelous because great feathery wings sprung open on his back and he could fly. And how he could fly! After first eating lots of clover, he would run swiftly, pumping his wings in long, powerful strokes. Our friend, for he was everyone's friend, soared down valleys and visited treetops, where of course he could not land, but liked nibbling the tender young leaves and buds while rhythmically flapping his wings and hovering ever so delicately. Sometimes when our friend ate enough clover and felt particularly happy, he could fly all the way to the mountain top without even thinking once that it was a very long way indeed. Among the craggy peaks, our marvelous creature, friend, met Eagle, his best friend. They talked excitedly about all kinds of things, and when they looked down below, they saw everything very clearly. Because he lived here all the time, Eagle was truly special to Friend. Friend might have thought Eagle to be very wise, but Friend did not know what wise was. Later in our story, an old rock rat will help him to know what wisdom is. Now our story begins. One day Friend was nibbling clover when a donkey trotted over and stopped. Donkey looked at Friend and twitched his ears from side to side and opened and closed his nostrils several times. Finally, Donkey asked, "What kind of animal are you?" Our friend tried to think what he was, but no one had ever named him before. Strangely, he could not say. He did not know what he was called, even though he knew what it was like to be himself. "I don't know," Friend answered honestly. Well, you look a little like a goat. I think I saw one once. Yes, I'm sure you are a goat. What are you doing now?" "I'm eating clover so I can fly and go visit Eagle on the mountain," Friend answered simply. "Don't be silly," said Donkey. "Goats can't fly. You must walk to the mountain. But why do that anyway? You should do something useful instead. See, I carry things to the market. That's useful." Donkey shifted his legs and the packs and the vegetables on his back moved. Friend, to be quite honest, had wondered why tasty-looking carrots and cucumbers were growing on Donkey's back. Friend thought it would be nice to have such good food growing right upon one's own back. But he was beginning to see that the carrots and cucumbers and other things were only placed there, and Donkey only carried them to a place called Market. So he asked Donkey, "And what do goats do?" "I don't know. I can't talk anymore to someone who doesn't know anything. I am late. Maybe Horse can help you." And away trotted Donkey. So Friend walked along, wondering what a horse looked like, and what being late was. Friend was wondering so much that he forgot about flying to see Eagle. Sometimes he even stumbled a little while walking, even though mostly he kept looking right down at the ground as he walked. Friend walked slowly down this very same slope he usually ran down to start flying. Eventually, he came to a place with broad fields of grass and strange trees that grew very straight, yet were not very tall. He remembered now flying over these fields and thinking that they looked like the back of a very large snake. Going up to one of these strange trees, which were, of course, fence posts, Friend found an animal as big as a cliff standing on the other side. He was so big and so impressive. Surely it would know what he was and what goats do. "What are you called?" asked Friend.
"Excuse me," said the animal.
"Hello, excuse me," said Friend.
"Ruff," said the animal huffily. "You say excuse me before you ask a question. I, of course, am a horse. You certainly don't know anything."
Yes, Donkey said that's true. Excuse me, what do goats do? Donkey said horse would know.
Goats are small and weak and don't really do much of anything. No one person can even ride on them. Goats are useless to people.
Horse pranced, tossing his noble head so that his long, elegant mane flew up in the wind. For a moment, Friend was reminded of flying, but almost at the same time he began wondering what people were. There seemed to be so much that he did not know. Now, Donkey had carried carrots and cucumbers, which are good to eat. Excuse me, are people good to eat? Horse whinnied gleefully. People? Of course not. You don't eat people. People are what make me important. Now goats, that's another matter. Perhaps that's what goats are good for. Friend fortunately did not understand this last comment and walked on down a long, narrow, and very hard field between two fences. Soon he saw two more horses, and on their backs were long, thin creatures with multi-colored skins. These must be people, thought Friend, and they are creatures and not vegetables. Excuse me, said Friend, but the creatures named people responded in a strange tongue that sounded a little like blue jay, and they waved their forelegs in funny ways. After a time, the people riding horses moved on, and if Friend had understood them, he'd have heard them say, Odd critter that was. Better tell Jansen that one of his hybrids got loose. Hybrids being animals that are a bit of this and a bit of that. Friend came to an area without fences and lay down on the soft, short grass to rest. Soon a creature came by that was as small to Friend as Friend was to Horse, and interestingly was as much tail as body. Excuse me, what are you called? What do you do? Asked Friend. I'm a fox, and I do only what I need to, which means find something to eat, find a nice place to lie down in the sun, or if it's cold in the shade, if it's hot, responded Fox, scratching behind his ear. Oh, and sometimes I go to the stream to get rid of fleas. And do you carry things on your back? You ask a lot of questions, Friend, said Fox, lying down. Do I? I used to be like you, but there is so much I need to know. Things like Donkey and Horse know. Maybe knowing things is important, but I am free. I like to enjoy myself. And what could possibly fit on my back? And why would I want something on my back? You can be like them if you want, but really, these fleas are a bother. I'm going down to the river now. Then it'll be so nice to lie in the sun after being in the cold water. Friend closed his eyes and soon was dreaming of flying on the mountain with Eagle, when suddenly he awoke. One of the people creatures stood near him. Friend did not try to run away, even when something was put around his neck. He did not know how to distrust or be afraid. Many years passed, and Friend became very useful to people. He spent his days at the Jansen petting zoo, and small, funny people called children would come and stroke his fur. Some children were shy and gentle, and some were naughty and tried pulling one or another of his feathers. He learned his feathers were quite unusual, but interestingly, Friend did not try to fly. He wasn't even sure he had ever flown, and at the petting zoo he was not given any clover to eat. At night, Mr. Jansen came and placed a rope around Friend's neck and took him to the barn. Each time he did this roughly, just like that first time. In the morning, Mr. Jansen took a stiff brush and brushed Friend's feathers and hair, even if the brush pulled and hurt him. Friend had learned to accept this. Somehow it must be necessary. Yet in truth he never did understand this. In fact, although he had learned the names for many things, he thought maybe he would never understand why things were like they were. But mostly, Friend did like the children that came to the petting zoo. They were different from older people, and often very funny, and made him laugh. Friend had a friend at the zoo too, Pig. Pig, like Friend, was special because instead of just 2 ears, he had an extra set behind the first, and he had 4 ears in all. Pig was both very funny and very dirty. He would call the children little worms, even though he liked them just as Friend did. But if older children or adults were naughty and threw things at them, or were mean in other ways, Pig would lie very still until they leaned over the railing. Then he would quickly flick mud on them, squealing some very clever things, which of course the two-legged ones would not understand. Friend and Pig would then secretly laugh. Friend was glad Pig was his friend, and sometimes their friendship reminded him of another friendship, his friendship with Eagle, that now seemed like a dream. One night, Mr. Jensen acted very funny and fell down and went to sleep right there at the zoo. As the door was open, Pig encouraged Friend to run away with him. For 2 days and nights they walked through a forest. They ate wind-blown apples and watched the stars come out at night. "That group of stars looks like me, and that bunch over there looks like you," said Pig. "And if we ever can't see each other, we can look at the stars and be as if with each other." And this thought made Friend both happy and sad. But when Mr. Jensen found them and hit them about the ears, and then petted them and gave them extra oats to eat for a while, Friend wondered why life was a mixture of happy and sad, sometimes more of one and sometimes more of the other. One night, while riding in the back of Mr. Jensen's pickup truck, the truck suddenly stopped, but Friend did not stop and bumped his head on the back of the truck's cab. He heard a lot of people's voices talking loudly. Even after so many years with people, he could only understand a little of their talking. It seemed to him that they used many words to say something simple. Often in the middle of their talking, they'd forget how they had started, or why, by the end of their talking, it was just all air noise like wind in the treetops. Or as Pig would say, "Just like when I eat too many apples." Friend was feeling his aching head when a strange man climbed in the back of the truck and grabbed him. And then something happened. Friend had never struggled before, but now his head hurt, and this man was hurting his legs. Friend kicked the man, who howled loudly. Even though Friend's head hurt, he ran right at the man and butted him out of the truck. Friend kept running. Friend was not used to running, but he ran and ran until he fell in a panting heap under a stand of trees. He slept deeply, and when he awoke, the sun was rising over the mountains. The mountains! Not even knowing why, Friend knew he must go to the mountain. Some memories stirred within him. Getting up feeling quite achy and sore, Friend heard an odd sound, a little like the wind and a little like Pig when he rolled around in his muddy play areas. Friend found the source of the sound, and he saw more water than he ever imagined rushing along. Friend saw a slinky creature out in the water, and for the first time in quite a while he had many questions. Now, he was not interested in the creature's name or what he did. No, what he really wanted to know was how he could be in all that water. And since the mountain lay on the other side of the water, he wondered how he, Friend, could get across. But this creature, River Otter, was a mammal that spends most of his time in water. Otter dove deep below the water's surface and disappeared. Friend felt thirsty and stooped low to drink the cold, refreshing water. Since Friend was older now, his beard had grown quite long, and it floated on the water as he drank. Suddenly, Friend felt a tug on his beard. Surprised, he jerked his head up, and a few minutes later saw Otter's head a few yards away on the riverbank. Otter was chuckling. Why do your whiskers grow from your chin?" Otter asked. Otter's whiskers grew sideways from his nose. Friend did not know, remembering how Pig might have answered, said, "Just because they do. And who are you, and why did you pull on them?" "Because they were there. Otter replied, very happy with his cleverness. He swam right side up and wrong side down before he popped his head up again. "Why do you do that?" asked Friend. "Why, because it's fun, and I like to be happy." When Friend heard the word happy, he remembered a time feeling happy and not thinking about being happy, and something about wanting to go to the mountains. Perhaps he was going to the mountains to be happy. He could not exactly recall eating clover and flying to see Eagle. It had been such a long time ago. "I want to go to the other side. How can I get across?" asked Friend of Otter. "Can you swim?" asked Otter. "I don't know," replied Friend. "How do you swim?" Otter could not think how he swam, for he swam about to see what he did. "I have always swum. I never did not swim, so I don't know how I began." "I would say you should be happy and jump in and play, and maybe be playful and jump in and be happy." Otter swam about more, dove under, and then popped up further out in the stream and said, "Or jump and be happy and play, or be happy or play and then jump." Otter chuckled, delighted with the game, but he then disappeared. Friend put his hoof in the water. It was cool. He did not want to be all cold and wet, and he did not know what would happen if he tried to walk across the water and the water came over his head. Then he did recall something about running down a slope and jumping. Perhaps that was what Otter was trying to tell him. So he walked up the bank a little ways and galloped towards the water, leaping over the bank and splashing into the river. Friend soon found he was going where the water was going, which was not exactly where he wanted to go. Thrashing his legs, he found he could go partway where he wanted to go, as well as where the water was going. Of course, like Otter, sometimes he was going right side up and sometimes wrong side down. But he didn't think this was fun. Too often he would bump his already sore head and swallow water even though he was no longer thirsty. Eventually, Friend struggled up onto the other side, and though still sore, started walking towards the mountain. And he did not look back, for he was sure that Otter might be there laughing. Otter was a bit like Fox, and Friend mused that these two seemed to have an easier life than he had had. He lay down on some soft pine needles and wondered why he wanted to go up to the mountains, for now his legs were doubly tired and his head twice as sore, and now even his chin whiskers smarted. Friend fell asleep and dreamed. He dreamed of running down a slope, and then there was a river, and he became scared. But this time when he jumped into the air, and he flew and flew towards the mountains, closer and closer. Then he awoke to the sound of a bird singing. Friend had not much listened to birds before, because they seemed to sing silly songs. This little bluebird was singing, "Great blue sky, meet green earth, lovely green earth, meet blue sky, green earth, blue sky, say hi, hello, how are you?" Friend lifted up his still sore head and asked, "Little bird, what is the sense of your song? I say you are like Fox and Otter, and have nothing useful to do and nowhere to go." Oh, great bearded mountain goat, I do not know what you mean. Without me, how would sky know earth, and earth know sky?" "But don't you think they can't help but know each other?" Bird flew to her higher place and sang, Perhaps, maybe they do, maybe they don't, but I feel better singing my song. And what if Eagle never met Friend? Oh, blue sky, green earth, blue sky, say hi, hello, how are you?" Friend's hairy ears perked up at the mention of Eagle, but Bluebird flew off. Friend walked higher up the mountain, and the bird's song stuck in his mind, as songs sometimes do. Especially he repeated over and over, what if Eagle never met Friend? And how could a little bird with a brain no bigger than a grape know about Eagle, and that maybe sometime, somewhere, Friend really did meet with Eagle? He walked on, and sometimes he could find a little spring to get a drink. and sometimes he could only absorb the moisture from eating plants. His feet hurt and his lungs hurt, for even as there was less mountain to climb, there was less air to breathe. And it became so cold that one day Friend relieved his thirst by licking snow. Snow seemed to cover everything. Here the mountain was so steep and rocky that he could not find a way through, even though he had become used to traveling trails no bigger than the width of one of his hooves. At last he found a little ledge to lie down upon. I've traveled to the end of what I can do, he thought. At this point, an old rock rat, who was sunning himself nearby, spoke to him. "Who are you?" the rat asked. Friend exhaled loudly. He remembered Donkey telling him that he was a goat, Mr. Jansen calling him stupid beast, children calling him silly animal, Pig calling him friend. "I don't know. I think once I flew with Eagle and didn't have a name, and since then I've had many. And who are you?" "I am simply me. I've no need to be any one or anything else." "Hello, me," said Friend. No, you are you. You are you. I am me, and we are all the same. You and me and Bird and Otter and Donkey, Mr. Jansen, the children and Pig." "Then I am me. Is that all, my little friend? I feel you must know. Once I was impressed with Donkey's knowledge, Horse's great size, men's great powers, Fox's sense of what was important, Pig's knowledge of survival and friendship, Otter's experience of the magic of play and water, Bird's belief of doing what one can. But, little old one, you seem to know all of them. Yet surely you have always lived high up here on this lonely cliff." "I can look down and see it's all under one sky, so how can anything be separate?" "Pig and I once looked at the stars and saw each of other, but the stars are there and we are here. Stars are there and we are here, but we are all in the same someplace. It's all a matter of how you look at it. Here is someplace, and there is someplace. It might as well be the same someplace." "Then I will stay here too, for I can't go on. I thought there was an eagle, but I must have dreamed that." "My friend, there is Eagle. For me, I feel no need to meet Eagle. I am content, but you perhaps should meet her." "Yes, I do feel I need to meet her again. But how? I cannot walk further." "How did you meet her before? You said again, didn't you?" "Yes, I remember. I was happy and jumped like Otter and believed and flew like Bird. But there was something else. Yes. I needed to eat clover. Oh, but there is no clover here. I cannot fly." The old rock rat scratched himself under the chin and said, "Remember when you first met Donkey? You thought it would be nice to have tasty things to growing in one's back. Well, look around. A clover seed that you've carried all this time has sprouted there. When Mr. Jansen brushed you roughly, it went deeper and deeper. Then when you jumped in the river, it began to sprout. Now a mountain sun warmed and nurtured it. You can eat it now." Friend reached his head around and could just reach the little clover plant. At that moment he heard a screech, looked up, and there was Eagle winging down from her craggy home. Encouraged by this familiar cry and full of joy, Friend once again flexed his lovely wings, and without thinking, jumped off the cliff and flew up to meet his beloved friend. Eagle and Friend flew together again, and it was as if no time had passed since the last time they had been together. And after they had flown wordlessly for a while, they alighted on the eagle's craggy home. "Eagle, best friend, why is it as if I just saw you, yet I've lived a long time and felt sad as much as happy? Eagle replied, Rock Rat, I think, told you some place can be any place. Well, time, too, maybe can be any time. That makes my head spin. Come, let us soar about as that other time, which I see is just like this time. And they did, and they looked, and they just as before, everything was so clear. Then Friend had a question. First, Friend Eagle, why was I separated from you for so long, even though now it does not seem so long? Eagle replied, When first you came to see me, it was because it made you happy. But when you told Rock Rat you needed to see me, it was different. It was because you wanted to know why, as we grow old, we don't know how to be happy. Eagle continued, You see, I know I am me as Rock Rat is himself, but also I am Eagle. And just as now you are thinking perhaps of Pig, I thought of you, for I missed you too, and hoped that you would once again find your way here, and you have. Perhaps you can teach me, for it's true I've been here, but you know how to come here from there. You did not just settle for the names things are called. You kept caring and wanting to really know. Friend replied, Almost I did not come here, and now there is no place I would rather be than here. But even now, I think to go back and visit Pig. He would enjoy hearing about the mountain. I think he might understand, too. For look, the stars have come out, and there is Pig, and there is me. And perhaps he has gotten free, too, and is eating wild, wind-blown apples, and looking up just as we are.